All right, breaking news. Protesters have taken the streets in Chicago. Let's have a conversation, folks. A big protest downtown Chicago after a couple of days of what the mayor, Brandon Johnson, Pritzker was out there today, some sort of rally. And what happens? They take the streets. They take the streets in Chicago. Let's talk, folks. Come on in. Continuous coverage of the situation that is going on in Chicago, Illinois. Broadview, Illinois. Broadview, the ICE facility in Broadview. Folks, there's a curfew at the Broadview Center. 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. The mayor gave a curfew. They kicked everyone out. Appears that this type of group here is centered around the Broadview and others. Have a conversation, folks. This comes after back and forth between the Trump administration and Pritzker, the governor, and Brandon Johnson. Today, the President of the United States is calling for Pritzker and Johnson to be jailed. Which is going to make it very interesting because National Guard troops are nearby, stationed. There is a court hearing tomorrow, and there's some talk that there could possibly be the Insurrection Act coming. It's going to get very, very interesting in Chicago this weekend, I do believe. However, there's other things going on in the world. Possibly some sort of peace deal in the Middle East, right? A peace deal in the Middle East, possibly. That could maybe thwart possibly what the government plans to do here, that they say over the weekend. There might be an issue, or it might be stalled because of the peace deal in the Middle East where the administration is going over there. Apparently, there has been some sort of deal, and this might be on the back burner, but we don't know. But in the meantime, they have taken the streets. Mayor Johnson, fiery speaking at these press conferences. I personally think it's inciting the masses. Personally think so, but everyone has an opinion on this matter. But they're in the streets of Chicago. They're in the streets of Chicago tonight. Once again, they have taken the streets. Now, your thoughts, because this is a conversation that we've been having for days, if not weeks. Chicago. Now, we won't call this a massive protest, but it is interesting, though, midweek, Wednesday, you have people that have taken the streets on a midweek day. Normally, this stuff only happens on the weekend. I am very concerned about what's going to transpire this weekend in Chicago. I'm very worried about everyone's safety. Even the people in the streets here. I'm worried about everybody's safety here. I personally think it's going to get really, really bad and ugly. Personally, in Chicago, by analyzing this and seeing, because it seems like Chicago is like the only city in this country that is literally the leaders of Chicago is literally saying that they want to put up a fight and fight with the federal government. This is the only one. Portland's different. Even though there's a lot of things going on in Portland. But this is Portland's officials, at the very least, at least you don't have the Portland mayor openly, Portland police chief, even the governor. At least you don't have them openly saying some crazy talk like Pritzker and Johnson is doing, even though we know it's really bad in Portland. I personally think Antifa controls Portland and has something over the politicians' heads there, and they're just scared. They're scared. But this situation in Chicago, I've never seen anything like this. Like a tit for tat, the rhetoric going on back and forth between Brandon Johnson and Pritzker and the Trump administration. They're going to clash. They're going to clash here. They're going to clash. And what will happen here at that point? I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't know. Insurrection Act is being thrown around out there. I personally think it's coming, but it's just a matter of when. Or are they just going to wait to see how much farther this goes before the Insurrection Act? Or is it just dangling the Insurrection Act as a threat and not really invoke it? National Guard is in Illinois. They're in Illinois. They're nearby. What's going to happen this weekend in Chicago? What's going to happen? Whew. Have you ever heard of a president of the United States openly calling for a governor and a mayor to be jailed? I never heard of that. Have you ever heard of a president that has said, he said today, Johnson and Pritzker belong in jail. They should be in jail. And now he touched on that today a little bit when he had a roundtable with boots on the ground, journalists, influencers, social media people that they had a roundtable on Antifa, talking about the violence with Antifa. Now, I do think Antifa is in the mix here, but I don't think it's solely Antifa here in Chicago. I think it's solely Antifa in Portland. But here in Chicago, I feel like it's a combination of all types of activists, all mashed in together for one common goal here is to take on the federal government. But he was there, and he actually talked a little bit today at that Antifa meeting about Pritzker and Brandon Johnson, and he pretty much said they committed a crime by allowing ICE agents to be attacked. And basically, the president was talking about the chief, John Hine, and about him instructing the officers to turn around and go back the other way and turn around and not help ICE at the time. Now, he says, according to Trump, that's on Pritzker and Johnson, both of them. This looks raging here. This looks like these people are very passionate about how they feel here. No Trump, no troops. Fight for immigrants and workers' rights. Now, we just heard about a peace deal overseas. A lot of times in Chicago, the protests that we've been seeing prior to the troops the last couple of weeks was the Free Palestine. Free Palestine. And we saw a lot of the Free Palestines in the streets, right? Well, what's going to happen over the weekend when there is a peace deal between Gaza and Israel? Would the Free Palestine people still go back out there? If there's a peace deal, what would be the point of the Free Palestine to go back out on the streets? Or will they just join this group in solidarity? It's going to be interesting. But this one, you don't really see Free Palestine. You actually see stuff about immigrants, no Trump. Today, Pritzker's I don't know where he was at. He was in Chicago. Pritzker's there, and he's telling people in the crowd that the federal government's going to take away their paychecks, take away Medicare, Medicaid, take away their Social Security, threat to democracy. Troops are storming all over Chicago, rounding up families and tamale vendors. That's what Pritzker was saying today with a lot of talk. Like he's going to do that. Like they're saying the federal government do it. That whenever they talk, whenever Pritzker and Johnson talks, usually within a day or two, things follow like this. Now, how many people are there? How many people you think they're there? A 1,000? A couple hundred? You think this is massive? I don't think it's massive. It's a pretty big group of people walking down the middle of the street in downtown Chicago on a Wednesday night. Tonight's Wednesday? Yeah, it's Wednesday. Wackadoodle Wednesday, folks. Always something crazy on JLR Investigates when it comes to wackadoodle. People say 300,000, 2,000 maybe. I think it's a good 1,000. I think it's a good 1,000 out there, you know, and on a Wednesday night, that's a pretty big deal. Because, you know, these things, you know, after 2020 with the craziness in 2020, after George Floyd started taking the streets, it started building. But this is literally the only city they're actually doing this. You know, months back, they were doing it to an extent in Los Angeles. They brought in the National Guard, calmed it down. National Guard ended up leaving, most of them. Some are still around the federal building. But it stopped. It stopped in Los Angeles, which I feel has more immigrants in Los Angeles than they do in Chicago. Los Angeles, second biggest city in the United States. It's the third biggest city in the United States. So you got that, right? You got them out here. But I think what brings these people out here is more about what Johnson and Pritzker is telling them. You know, I had a conversation with the great Magnolia, the better half of JLR Investigates. We had a really conversation, you know, on Chicago today. And I'm starting to think that the cartel has something over Pritzker, like cartel stuff, because we keep hearing the Trump administration say, follow the money, follow the money, follow. I really think someone owns Pritzker, because for a governor to behave this way, just so, and Johnson, like Johnson's rant in the last couple press conferences that he has been like, have you seen Johnson's eyes? Something's up here. He's either scared, worried, defiant, digging his heels down big time. I just feel like somebody has something over them, or someone's strangleholding them. Cartel or their whole operation, you know, because Pritzker's the billionaire, family owns hotels and stuff like that. You know, with this issue with the you know, migrants, immigrants, people coming in, illegals coming in, a lot of them flooding into Chicago from 22 to 24, the housing, where they put them and everything. I wonder if they were like getting all types of no big contracts and doing contracts out to all their friends and cronies and everything like that. And they're worried that the federal government's going to come in and get the books and start figuring out all their schemes and the money. Because, you know, they ran out of money, and Johnson had the audacity, Brandon Johnson, to try to propose to raise tax on all the taxpayers, raise property taxes, and raise taxes for all the citizens to offset the money that was being spent for all the migrants when other people needed the money. You know, it's just speculation, but I just think there's just some in the intricate. They keep saying, well, you know, Johnson's trying to turn this into a race war. He is. He's literally saying they're going after him because he's a black man, and they're trying to redo the Civil War, a rematch of the Civil War. I mean, he's going pretty crazy with his talk. Go back and listen. He went defiant today. He said he told the president of the United States he's not going anywhere when the president said he should be in jail. I mean, this is getting pretty crazy in Chicago. It literally is. I really think it's getting crazy in Chicago. To what extent? Where does this go? Will it die down like it did in Los Angeles? Remember, it was pretty bad in Los Angeles. You know, what was it, May, June, July, August, September, October, 5 months ago, May. In Los Angeles, it was pretty wild. And you know, South Los Angeles, they were throwing bricks and rocks at ICE. ICE was going around arresting people at like Home Depots and going around targeting enforcement, and people were resisting. And it got so bad, you know, they had to bring in the National Guard to quell it down. People were going up to that federal detention center in downtown Los Angeles, and the National Guard pushed them all back. But that kind of died away, right? As we thought it was going to be bad, it kind of just died away. I mean, I still see videos of some people like protesters and stuff go up to the ICE building in Los Angeles. Nothing now. So this very well could die out too. Very well could die out. But, Karen Bass and Newsom, yeah, they take jabs at the others. They take jabs at Trump. But they're not talking like how Pritzker and Johnson is. Newsom Newsom, but, not, not like this. Not like this, folks. How long will this go? And what's the end game here? What is the end game? Is it a battle of who's going to budge? National Guard ain't going nowhere, does it appear. Appears they got a court hearing tomorrow on the matter here. Remember, a federal judge by the name of Perry, who was appointed by Joe Biden, denied Pritzker's Brandon Johnson temporary restraining order, just ordered a hearing, but the restraining order, there is no restraining order. So if National Guard wants to hit the streets tonight in Chicago, they can. And even if there was a restraining order, they probably could still do it anyway. But where does this go? And I think this is an issue. I don't enjoy covering this. I really want to just see peace and safety. I just want everybody in this country to be able to go out with their families and be in peace. Not be bothered, not be threatened, not be harassed, not be victimized. I just want to see an America where the streets are cleaned up. I can care less what your political affiliation is. Me personally, I think it's just an issue of, wanting safety and security. Of course, you want low prices, and I like low gas. I don't like the government intruding on my life very much. Is it that hard to ask for? It's just to have some, be able to walk around a city at night and not be mugged, shot, harassed, terrorized, roving gangs. And the gangs and the roving criminals, fortunately, a lot of them crossed the United States legally from the southern border and made their way to Chicago. I think it's also a combination of them integrating with our youth and our generation, who have zero respect for authority. Did you see what happened in Boston? Holy smokes, I was going to do a whole story on Boston. Boston, just in the last 3 nights. 3 nights ago, they set a police cruiser on fire. At a street takeover in Boston, they set a police cruiser on fire. Hundreds of juveniles shooting fireworks and throwing things at cops. They set a cruiser on fire. And then last night, a group of Free Palestine, they attacked the police. What the heck's happening? I really think Boston might be the next National Guard spot. Personally. Thank you, Savvy Turtle. Thank you. But, I would just want to know, where this goes. I'd rather be covering true crime and stuff like we like doing. But this is a national security issue. This is crime. This is a true crime type story. I don't like covering this. It's horrible, but at the same time, something has. Listen, and I'm talking about crime in cities. This isn't a crime. I'm not saying this is a crime. What I mean is they're protesting because they are mad that the Trump administration is coming in, rounding up criminals. I'm not saying this is a crime here, even though you're walking the streets. Technically, it's a crime. This is, they'll call it protesting. But what I mean is these people are protesting the Trump administration going in, rounding up criminals, dangerous people. Who wouldn't want dangerous people off the streets? Who wouldn't want criminals off the streets? How many people have been victimized in this country? A lot. There's been so many cases, but it's getting wild. These criminals are getting access to these guns. They're doing crazy shootouts. But where does this go? What stops this? What does this just die off? We've been saying for, last couple of years, the war with Israel and Gaza, it's almost 2 years now. 2 years. And really last night in Boston that was centered around free Palestine. So that's still been going on and off. Skirmishes all around the country. They were in New York City last night, I think, banging on the windows of Blackstone. So we can't necessarily say this is going to die down, because the free Palestine stuff still going on 2 years later in this country. It was bad last night. It was bad in Boston. So some people might say, well, this might be just a hotbed right now. In a couple of weeks, it'll go away. I don't know. In Chicago, when you got Pritzker and Johnson, telling people to go confront ICE to their faces. Use your voice. Go confront them. Film. Stand up for your fellow Chicagoans. Is that where they call it Chicago? I'm not from Chicago. You know what I mean. I can say, though, I've seen a lot of videos from locals, American locals that are there in Chicago. Hispanic community, African-American community, white community. And I see a lot of videos of people like, look, over the last couple of years, the illegals have been coming in, for some reason, being dumped in our neighborhoods by the Brandon Johnson administration. They've been dumping them in our late neighborhoods, and they've been just taking over our apartment complexes and street corners. And so I personally think a lot of residents in Chicago are fed up. It's almost like American citizens have been left behind. Crazy, folks. But it's, I don't know where this goes. Does it die out? Does the Trump administration back off? Does the Trump administration just let the criminals stay in Chicago? Does Brandon Johnson and Pritzker finally start working with the Trump administration? One thing I did notice, though, is two things I noticed. One, Gregory Brovino, the commander of Border Patrol, who came from Los Angeles up there now in Chicago. He had a meeting with Snelling, superintendent of Chicago. I think they're in agreement here to anytime ICE is under some sort of needs help or whatever, Chicago's going to help them police from now on. But the fraternal order of police just gave Hine, who was that commander that turned Chicago police away from Border Patrol or ICE to help them, they're like a union of like 325,000 members or something. They just gave Hine a zero confidence vote. So I think he might be gone. But Snelling, I think, is on the same. I personally think Superintendent Snelling and Brandon Johnson at this point are not on the same page with this. Because I listened to Snelling the other day. We did. I think it was, I don't know if he's trying to save face. I don't know if he's trying to cover up. But it seems like, he's basically telling people there, don't confront ICE. ICE has the legal authority to shoot you. If you go at a federal agent, they could shoot you. If you block a federal agent from doing something or obstruct them and you pose a threat, they can shoot you. They have the legal right to. And he also said that Chicago police are not going to arrest ICE agents, but Brandon Johnson's acting like if ICE agents do crime, they'll be arrested. Kristi Noem, DHS secretary, was just meeting with the Portland police chief with the issue in Portland. Now, I've been watching Portland, and it's all ratchet there. It's crazy. Portland's I think Portland's just like a whole other country, man. I mean, it's an Antifa hotbed for sure. Hopefully they fix that. But apparently Kristi Noem met with the police chief of Portland, Bob Day. They had a meeting, but Kristi Noem said today that they're complicit with Antifa. That's what she said. Woo! But I did want to show you what's going on in Chicago. You could call this a big protest. You could call this a mini protest or a protest of what's to come. I don't know what's going to come out of this. I don't know how far this goes. And I'm trying to wrap my head around this a little bit because, you know, when the election just happened and in January when the Trump administration went in, I remember like Denver's mayor. Remember Denver's mayor, Mike Johnston? He was all huffing and puffing, talking about, oh, well, if ICE comes into Chicago or Aurora or if ICE goes into Denver and Aurora, Denverites, women will lock arms and surround Denver and stop ICE. And then days later, he walked back on that statement and said, it's not true. No, not true. You know, we're gonna work with ICE for the criminals and stuff like that. And Mike Johnson just went away. It's just talk, and he went away. You don't hear really Karen Bass talking about ICE anymore like that. Newsom does. You don't Karen Bass talk about ICE and all that anymore, all like that. You know, I don't hear it really in any other cities except Chicago. Thoughts? Share your thoughts in the chat. Welcome aboard, folks. JLR Investigate. See a lot of people commenting. BJ Root. Thank you. Thank you, BJ Root. Get OJ some treats. Absolutely. And Rio. Absolutely. Thank you, BJ Root. Stephen Richard calls him Trans Tifa. Gina. Gunman on the loose in California. 2 PA cops shot now. I'm not aware of that. Thank you for sharing, Gina. There's a wild, crazy shooting spree in Texas today. 4 people shot. Well, 3, and the gunman shot himself. Shooting spree. Road rage. Savvy Turtle. Savvy Turtle. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Savvy Turtle. The cars are. It's sad that a small group of people, and that's what it is, in a big picture, holy city's hostage, holding the city hostage. And it's perpetrated by the politicians. You think about the Chicago population. What's the population in Chicago? We'll say a couple million in the metropolitan area. A few million, 4 or 5 million, something like that. 1,000 people is a little drop in the bucket. Right here, considering the entire population of Chicago, this is just a drop in the bucket. But they make a lot of noise. Resources, whatever, got to be drained here. Looks like, a resistance. But is it? Man, it's a pretty big look. It goes as far back as the screen. Luke Stone, thank you. Jeff, our friend Jeff. Pritzker is gaslighting. Everyone who is for law and order can see he's lost his mind. Brandon Johnson has lost his mind. I personally think both of them are going to get arrested. For what? I don't know. I don't know, folks. I personally think both of them are going to get arrested. Now, there was a protest in the day. I just wanted to just hop on tonight and share with you, exactly what is going on with Chicago and what's probably going to come, at least in the foreseeable future, at least for the next couple weeks. As far as the National Guard going into Chicago, like hit boots on the ground in the streets, I don't think they're going to do it now until the weekend passes, once they wrap up the situation in the Middle East. Peace in the Middle East. President of the United States comes back. Victory. Peaceful president in a lot of people's minds. Then he'll tackle probably issues in this country next week. That's my opinion. Subject to change, of course, by the dynamics of what's going on out there. Of course. No Trump, no troops. Now, some people think this could be paid protesters, passionate people. Some people think they're anarchists. People think they're communists out there. What's your thoughts? Thoughts on all this, folks? Because we're definitely monitoring the situation. going to be very, very interesting, I think, in the next couple of weeks. In Chicago, Memphis, I will say that Memphis, the National Guard is on the ground in Memphis. The mayor and the police chief has said that they could be out on the streets, the National Guard, by Friday. But Memphis is a whole different situation. And even Washington, D.C. with the National Guard was a different situation because you had the mayor and the police chief on board. They might not have liked it, but they had no choice. And they were partnering. And with Memphis, police chief on board, mayor on board, Governor Bill Lee on board, the United States senators, most of the congressional people in Tennessee, all on board. So it's a whole different animal in Memphis. Here, again, there's like literally like trash cans out there saying to shoot ICE and take out your ICE agent. Pretty crazy. See if we can get more of a boots on the ground chopper up in the sky. See if we can get all the boots on the ground assessment here. Stand by. But I'm glad I was able to come on tonight and at least talk to you a little bit about my thoughts on Chicago and what is going on in Chicago as we'll continue to monitor this situation. Chicago. That could have very well been a permit, by the way, permitted organized protest. But I do want to also share that Broadview, in Broadview, the mayor has implemented a 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. curfew, and they enforced it tonight. So 6 p.m., police went out there and told everyone to kick rocks, and they actually gave them about 10 minutes to leave. And then they all left. Now, media was reporting that that was the same group that was just out there now in Chicago. Crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Now, today also, folks, there was a daytime protest. Just seeing here for a minute. In Chicago, and also there was a footage out there from the National Guard. Looks like the party's over. Let me just see. Let me just scour something a minute. Yeah, it's done. Or they're done filming it. But at least we got to come on tonight and talk and stop by and continue to monitor what's going on in Chicago. We'll see if the National Guard hits the streets. We'll see. They're eventually going to hit the streets. We'll see what happens with this court hearing. We'll see if Johnson continues to talk, if Trump administration talks, Pritzker talks, and we'll just see what happens here. I don't want to see anyone get hurt at all. Crazy, crazy stuff, folks. All right, with that being said, signing off tonight. Short night. If something else breaks, you'll hear it here on JLR Investigates. I did want to just stop by and say hello to everyone and let us know what you think in the comment. And we will continue to pay attention to what's going on in Chicago. They killed the feed here, and it looks like it probably was winding down, but that was a lot of people there, so I don't know what happened here. But if it breaks out and goes crazy, which I don't think this group will, we'll be back. And anything else, we'll be back. All right, stay safe. We'll talk soon. JLR Investigates. Thanks for watching. See you.